All right, so in this video, we want to solve these quadratic trig equations over here. We have two questions and we want all our solutions between 0 and 2 pi. So let's start with this first example here. Now, quadratics, it really depends on the type of problem, but if you have just a quadratic term, like a squared term and a constant, we're going to solve this equation by moving the constants to one side and solving like that. Whereas if you have a square term and a regular term, or even if it's a trinomial, we're going to solve it with factoring. For this one here, the first thing I'm going to do is divide both sides by 2. So I'll have sine square x equals to 1. And then I want to get rid of the square, so I want to square root both sides. Now, when you square root both sides, it's going to split into two different equations because a square can split into a positive or a negative number. So here I have sine x equals to positive 1 or sine x equals negative 1. Now, these are just simple linear trig equations. You usually solve them using your cast rule, but remember there are several exceptions, and the exceptions to cast rule are when you get 1, -1, or 0. These are both exceptions over here, and I'm not going to solve these with cast rule, but instead I'm going to use a sine graph to solve these. So I'm going to draw a sine graph here between 0 and 2 pi. That's 2 pi. That's pi over 2, and that's 3 pi over 2. My maximum is 1 and my minimum is -1. So where is sine x equal to 1? That's this maximum right here, which has an x value of pi over 2. So my first solution is x is pi over 2. And my second solution, sine x equals to -1. Sine x is -1 over here at the minimum, which has an x value of 3 pi over 2. So only two answers in this question. Typically, a quadratic equation will have 4 answers between 0 and 2 pi, most of them. But you can have anywhere between 2 to 6 solutions or 5 solutions, 6 solutions sometimes. Generally 2 to 5, but most questions will have 4 solutions. It's only when you get the exception cases you get kind of a weird number, either 2, 3, or 5 solutions. Let's try this second question over here. This question can be factored. I can common factor out the cos x, and I'm left with cos x minus 1. So now I can state the solutions. Over here, cos x just equals to 0, and over here, cos x equals positive 1. That's the solution if I flip it around and solve this equation. Again, I have two exception cases, 0 and 1. So I'm going to use a cos graph to solve this rather than my cast rule. So cos graph looks like this. It starts at the max and ends at the max, and this is 2 pi. The max is 1, the min is -1, just like a sine graph. Middle here, the minimum is pi. This is pi over 2, and this is 3 pi over 2. So cos x equals to 0. Well, 0 is over here, and I have two solutions. The graph crosses 0 at 2 points. So I have x equals to pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2. That's my first two solutions for this one. And cos x equals to positive 1. Well, that's at the top here. And again, I have 2 points. And these 2 points are going to be 0 and 2 pi, the x values. So in this case, I actually have 4 solutions, but it is an exception case. Again, you have to use the graph rather than the cast rule. And these are my 4 solutions for this question.